Welcome everyone to today's webinar Strong4Life Office Ergonomics. I'm Stephanie from WorkSafe Tasmania and also the coordinator of WorkSafe Tasmania Month. I'll also be your moderator for this morning's session. Before we do get started, I'd appreciate you taking a few moments to read the following slide about information delivered during WorkSafe Month sessions. I'd now like to go over a few items so that you know how to participate in today's webinar. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your screen in the upper right-hand corner. You're likely listening in using your computer's default system. If you prefer, however, to join by telephone, please click on telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll also have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing in your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these questions and address most of them at the end of today's presentation. We are also recording webinars during WorkSafe Month and we'll make these available on the WorkSafe Month website at the end of WorkSafe Tasmania. Lastly, we do appreciate you completing a survey on today's presentation. The survey will pop up on your computer screen once today's webinar ends. I would now like to welcome this morning's presenter from IPAR Rehabilitation, Lynn Martin, to present this morning's webinar, Strong4Life Office Ergonomics. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning. I'm Lynn and welcome to Strong4Life Office Ergonomics. Today, we're going to spend some time looking at some of the concepts behind office ergonomics. We will look at the risks, talk about the body and parts of the anatomy and the role that they play in office ergonomics, and more importantly, we'll look closely at what we can do to keep ourselves safe. An important part of this presentation is about giving you the necessary skills to assess tasks, develop safe ways of undertaking the manual handling duties that you do in the office in order to minimise the risk of injuries. Following today's talk, you should understand and be able to assess your own physical strengths, weaknesses, fatigue, and potential for injury. Everyone has unique physical characteristics and you will need to consider in relation to the way you carry out your work activities. I will give you some tools to assist you to work within your circle of strength, to stay strong and safe and healthy in your work and personal life. Right, Strong4Life is a training program focused on injury prevention. It's about getting people to have early intervention when at the first signs of pain, and it's about understanding and minimising the risks that are involved with manual handling and the ways of minimising your injury. Basically, what we aim to do here is to teach you how to think rather than what to do. As you can see from this diagram, we can see where we would like to be on this scale. We'd much prefer to be in the pleasure and comfort zone rather than in the aches, soreness and pain area of the scale. what we're trying to teach here is that when you start to feel discomfort, you really need to be proactive and do something immediately. Some of the things you can do is to get moving or rest if you have been moving a lot, or to have a stretch for 20 to 30 seconds. And all this will help to decrease your achiness and soreness, thus reducing your discomfort and hopefully preventing you from ending up in pain. It's basically Strong4Life is what you think about every time you move. Right, I have some videos here, and we discovered that it's a little tricky to get them the way that I wanted. So we have to actually go off our screen to get them going. Volume, okay. Is that better? More? You can't hear it. Do you hear it now? Oh, okay. Okay, I just heard from Stephanie that you know that we couldn't hear what was happening there. So I think basically what we will do is when it comes to a video, I'll probably show the video, but I'll speak over the top of it. That one was kind of okay because it had writing on it and it was just going over the information on the circles. But what I'll do is I'll talk over the information that will be covered in the videos. So my apologies for that. We have, as you can tell, had a few technical difficulties. Okay, so basically what we're looking at here is the relationship between the work you do, the environment you're in, and the tools you use, and we're really looking at what you can do to influence the way you do your work, the way you set up your equipment so that the environment is safe and ergonomical, and the tools you use so that they are also used appropriately with the correct PPE and are close to you. The goal of setting up your work environment is so that when you're getting the job done, you are able to do it correctly. Why is office ergonomics so important? Oh, there's another one of those, sorry. Office ergonomics is important because it can cause you to end up with musculoskeletal disorders if you are continually doing repetitive activities or you're placing prolonged stress on your muscles and tendons. Muscles and tendons like to be in mid-range, and if you were to straighten your arm now, you'll notice that your arm is at the end of range, or if you were to bend it all the way up with your knuckle touching your shoulder, it's again at end range. When you use muscles and tendons in these ranges at the ends of the range, you're creating an issue where there's decreased blood supply to the joints. Both muscles, tendons, ligaments, all like to be used mid-range. So common parts of the body that we tend to stress and put in end range are our lower backs, shoulders, elbows, wrists and fingers. Most common are, like we said, caused by stressing, and one of those major stresses is when we put things in the end of range, or we do things repetitively, or we hold a posture for a prolonged period of time. Placing your joints in awkward and uncomfortable positions and prolonged time, like we just said. What we can do, what can go wrong is that if you continue to do these things, you're going to end up with repetitive strain injuries, such as overuse, sprains, strains, tendinitis, carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, trigger finger, and a lot of other injuries. The symptoms can vary, and often it depends on the individual, the site of the injury and the severity of the condition. But as we all know, they all include pain, a change in your muscle strength, swelling, numbness and restricted movement, and an inconvenience overall. So sprains and strains, we're just going to go over some of the basic conditions just so you have a better awareness of what a sprain and what a strain is. A sprain involves a tearing of ligaments, and the ligaments are used to help connect the bones and to stabilize joints. Muscles are stabilized by the tendons that attach them to the bones, and an injury to the tendons or muscles is called a strain. As we mentioned previously, they operate best in mid-range, and both of them require good blood flow. So when you're holding a position for a prolonged period of time, and especially when you're stressing the muscles or tendons at end range, it's less likely that you're going to have good blood flow to the area. Also, it's good to note that muscles, tendons, ligaments, all rely on movement key. You do need to have plenty of movement in your daily activity. Neck, tendinitis, sorry, I've gone ahead of myself there. Tendinitis is often caused when there's repetitive activity and there's a reduced blood flow to the area, and that causes damage to the actual tendon. This is often a very painful problem, and it can be chronic. So it's really important that if you do end up with inflammation of the tendons, that you do go and get them seen to, so that you don't continue to have pain and you're not working with pain for a long period of time. Neck and shoulder pain. The neck is a very mobile structure, and it supports a very heavy weight, about 7 kilograms for your head. So the muscles around your neck, as you can imagine, are pretty susceptible to injury, and they are small muscles. So they're small muscles doing the work. So when you put your neck in poor posture, you're actually creating trauma, and that's more likely to create degenerative changes in your spine and to cause neck pain. The shoulder too is another joint that doesn't have a lot of bony support. It's actually really supported by the tendons where the muscles join to the bone and form the rotator cuff. So that's another reason why it's really important when you are using posture at work that you're really aware of your shoulder posture, and that your shoulders and your elbows are close into your body, so that you're not putting a lot of stress on those tendons around the shoulder. And I'm sure everybody knows people who've had rotator cuff problems and continue to have pain and dysfunction as a result of that. So make sure you get to a doctor if you do have problems like this. Right, the next slide is about the anatomy of the spine, and I will show the spine, and like I said, I will talk over the slides so that you are getting some input. So it's important to understand the structure of the back so we know how it's put together, and it's best to think of it as a scaffold. The spinal column gives us structural support, and it appears straight when we're peered from the front or the back. But if you look from the side, it's actually an S-curve. You have facet joints and ligaments, and those are muscles, and they all control the movement of the back. How's this okay? It's saying here with the lower back that you don't want to twist your lower back too much because the facet joints will become irritated. So a lot of what we'll be talking about today is ways to move without irritating our back and irritating our lumbar spine facet joints. Right. Okay. Right. Here, have you ever considered the different positions and the impact that they have on your body? Here is a chart which is really, really interesting. If you've ever had a sore back, you've probably laid down on your back and elevated your legs. Well, there's a good reason for that, because in that position, your back actually has the least amount of stress on it. And second to that is lying. But what is really worth noting is that in standing, if you actually put your leg up on an item so that it's elevated and have a slight little bit of flexion in your back knee, there isn't really that much difference in pressure in your discs between lying and standing. So when you compare standing straight to standing with one leg up on something, you can see that that is a way, if you're having back pain and you're working in standing, that you can perhaps decrease the pressure in your back. Now with this standing, I'm pretty sure that's with your knees straight. Also consider standing with slight flexion in your knees. That also increases the shock absorption in your back and decreases the pressure in your disc. So if being able to put one leg up isn't something that's available to you, just having slight flexion in your knees can make a big difference. Next, we're going to look at sitting. Now look at the difference between sitting upright, which is the way that we normally start our day. I don't know, I've tapped something here. All right. Which is the way that we normally start our day. We normally start our day sitting upright, and then as the day goes on, we sometimes tend to lean forward and slouch. So just looking at the difference in pressure there, you can see that by leaning forward and slouching, you're actually significantly increasing the pressure on your back. So keep that in mind when you're at work. Also lifting, if you're forgot something that you're lifting, here's not the best diagram, but we would always recommend that you bend your knees. But if you're lifting with two arms, you're actually increasing the pressure to 150 relative to if you're trying to lift with one arm, 220. So you need to be aware that you're doing things in the most ergonomical way so that you're decreasing the pressure on those discs, because basically over a lifetime, that's a lot of work on your discs. So there are some things that we can do to reduce this stress. We can have our back relaxed. We probably won't get much work done in that position. When we're using our writing position, we can sit up straight. When we're typing, we can maintain good posture, and if we were to lift a weight, we can keep the weight close to our body. These are all things that can help in eliminating our risk of damaging our discs and all our muscles and joints. Right, we need to reconsider the 3 circle concept. Are you at risk of a musculoskeletal condition? What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some questions, and I want you to have a look at these questions. And there's 10 questions here, and I want you to tell me how, or I want you to just take the test and see how you scored on these questions. Right. So out of the 10 questions, what was your score? The higher you score, the higher you are at risk for an injury. It's important to address these factors in order to reduce your risk of injury. What do we need to do to address the first 4 items? Think about what we do and how we do it. Be conscious of using our body well and keeping it strong when we move, doing what is right rather than what is easy or lazy. What about the next 2 points? Our weight and smoking. Looking after our health, losing weight if we're carrying too much, and stop smoking. Why is losing weight important? Well, less of our frame would need to be carried. Simple tasks can become difficult and risky when we have increased weight. When we decrease our weight, we have improved circulation, and it's easier to maintain strong postures. Also, with less weight, there's decreased risk of illness. And what sort of effect does smoking have on our chance of injury? Well, smoking dehydrates and thins the disc and muscles, tendons and ligaments, and basically that causes our body to lose its shock absorbing capacity. And decreases the blood supply. So smoking causes the blood supply or the blood vessels to narrow, which decreases the blood supply to the discs, muscles, tendons and ligaments. Therefore, when you become injured, it takes much longer to heal than usual. The next 2 points, decreased core muscle stability and lack of exercise. Developing our physical strength to make our bodies strong and more able to cope with movement. What do you notice about each of these things? Which circle do these fall into? Who is responsible for making the differences in these areas? Lastly, we have the age between 35 and 45. Why do you think that this group is pointed out here as high risk for injury? Basically, because some of the things that you may consider is because generally people consider this the age when parts start to wear out a little from wear and tear and bad habits over the years, lots of bending and twisting, and you don't bounce back like you used to when you did get injuries in your youth. And your priorities have probably changed. You probably have kids and a job and less time for exercise. The discs are best when you're between 22 and 23 years of age. After that, they start to lose a little bit of water and dry out. They therefore lose their height and blood supply, and the discs start to decrease. Consider your discs as a water-filled balloon with a blob of toothpaste in the middle. So when you're bending and moving, the blob of toothpaste moves backwards and forwards depending on where you're moving. If the toothpaste pushes against the back wall of the balloon and stays there, this would be called a disc bulge. A bulge may end up pressing against your nerves, which would result in leg pain, which is often referred to as sciatica. Okay, so that kind of explains what your risk factors are. What can we do to reduce your risk factors? Well, we can apply Strong4Life principles and techniques, and this is the information that we'll be going over. The 3S principle, strong, stance, step, the circle of strength, and the 4R strategy, ready, recognize, respond, and reverse, and stretching exercises for office workers. Also, we can apply the following office ergonomics to your workspace. We can set up the chairs correctly. We can see if you need a footrest, monitor your position and your equipment position, check your posture at the workstation, and office lifting and manual handling, as well as removing clutter from around the workspace to minimize tripping hazards. The 3S principle, it refers to being strong, maintaining the natural curves of your back, joints and muscles in mid-range, and when you go to do an activity, making sure that you have a good stance where you have a staggered foot posture with your knees slightly bent. Think of a boxer. The reason a boxer has a staggered foot position and knees slightly bent is because this is the most stable position and the less likely chance that when they're hit, they're going to fall over. So there's no harm in us adopting that as well. Also, we want to think of the third S as step. Don't twist your back. Move every time you need to change angles, take a step. Also, when you do take a step, make sure your nose is over your toes. So here's a couple of diagrams that kind of demonstrate the nose over the toes principle. Right, circle of strength. Stay within your circle of strength. This conceptual circle enables you to lift and move either in sitting or standing with minimal stress on your body. It's the distance where your fingertips reach with your elbow, the distance where your fingertips reach with your elbows at your side bent at 90 degrees. By staying in your circle, you'll keep your back upright and the load close and will need to bend your knees. Right, normally we have a video, but seeing our videos aren't working very well, and I think that's a pretty easy concept to understand, that if you're staying in that circle, you're not going to be injuring yourself because you're in an ergonomical position. You can go down onto your knees, you can squat, you can lunge, but so long as your elbows are as close in to your sides as possible, you will be looking after your body. Also note that the back is kept straight. There's no hunching of the back when you do activities such as that. Right, the 4R strategy. The 4R strategy basically states your health is in your hands. It's all about personal management. It's up to you to look after your body. You only have one body and it has to last a long time. So when you feel an ache or any discomfort in your body, you need to act fast to work out what is going on and prevent it from getting worse. The longer you wait, the more likely the problem is to become more significant, and we also need to remember that pain is our body's way of saying something's not right. But it's not always there. Pain's not always there when there's a problem. So just be aware. Look at your body, look at the position that you're placing yourself in, look at your joints, especially finger joints, and just make sure that you're not putting them in awkward positions when you're doing your activities in the office. I will attempt this video just because it what was that? Strength, respond. Yep. And I will talk over the video. However, just looking at the movements of the gentleman in the video is actually quite helpful. So we're looking at applying the 4R strategies: ready, making sure you're prepared for the activity you're about to do. Start well, finish well. Like an athlete, it's important to always warm up before you do activities. Plan the activities with your circle of strength in mind, placing your feet in a good position. So think of the SSS. Recognize the messages of fatigue your body is sending you. Take action against those problems. Prevention is much better than a cure. Reverse injury-causing mechanisms. Our bodies will heal themselves to some extent, but you need to have good opportunities to recover. Rest when you've been working hard, and that will enable you to recover and stay healthy. So okay, we're going to go over a couple of stretching exercises. Warm up. So a good way to remember to do your stretches is to set Outlook reminders. So if you could set Outlook reminders every 30 minutes to do a couple of stretches or to get up and move away from your workstation, that would be a really good thing to do. You notice the first stretch was raising your arms up over your head. Well, most of the day your arms are down by your side, so you really want to get your arms up in a different position and move in ways that you haven't been moving. Here they're showing a stretch in a doorway where you've got one arm on each side of the doorway, and you take a small step forward, keeping your back straight, to feel a stretch in the front of your chest, because we all know as you continue to work, we tend to get more and more rounded as the day goes on. Neck stretches are always a great thing to do. Our neck has been turning left and right all day looking at the screen, so doing a stretch just to stretch out the muscles, get them in a different position to what they've been while you've been working. Same with your shoulders. Now a stretch can be held for 20 to 30 seconds, and it shouldn't be painful. All you should do is feel a mild stretching when you're performing the stretch. You don't want to bounce your stretches. You want to make sure that you're doing a variety of different body parts, and that you stop stretching if you do feel any pain. Remember to use the opportunities that you have during the day. So when you move from one activity to another, when you need to take a minute to think and concentrate on something, you can incorporate stretches such as the lower back stretch, either standing up or sitting. This is another stretch that you can do as you're working, just crossing one leg over the other, and it's a really effective one, and you can increase that stretch, as you see by the arrow, if you were to lean your trunk forward, keeping your back straight. Stretching will increase your flexibility and will also decrease the risk of injury. So remember to set your Outlook reminders. Sitting stretch for your hamstring. Right, now we're going to move on to the office ergonomics, which is, the setting up of your office so that it is set up to suit you the best that it can be. These are the questions you've got to ask yourself. Is your chair high enough so that your elbows are slightly above the height of your desk? Are you sitting as far back in your chair as possible? Is there a space between the edge of the chair and the back of your legs? Usually 3 to 5 fingers distance. Is the seat pan tilt relatively horizontal so that it maintains your spine in a neutral position? If your seat pan is tilted forward too much, you will exaggerate your lumbar spine, and if it's tilted back too much, you will round out your lumbar spine too much. Is the lumbar support of your chair in the small of your back? The small of your back is the bit where you arch your back and you get the most arch just above your hip bones. Is the backrest upright or in a slightly reclined position? Now, slightly reclined is not laying all the way back, as we know. The chair height is enough so that your elbows are above your desk, and also so that, oh, I thought of something, but it's gone. So there's a quick video here on how to set up your chair. We just, I will go to the video again, and so you need to consider how you're setting up your workstation to work within your Sircle strength as often as possible. Your hips and knees should be able to rest at approximately 90 to 100 degrees with your feet comfortably on the floor. See the tilt there? It's too much and causes her to fall too far forward. See how there it's closer to horizontal and gives her back better support in a neutral position. With the gap that we talked about, the 3 to 5 finger, so that way your blood supply to your lower limbs is not compromised. If it does touch your knees, that suggests the base is too long. You need as much contact with your back rest as possible and that the lumbar support is in your spine. Personally, the backrest should be between 90 and 100 degrees for the best posture, and your forearms should be slightly above the surface of the desk, and your forearms should be parallel to your keyboard. You shouldn't be hunching up or slouching in your chair. If you're hunching, raise your chair height, and if you're slouching, lower your chair height. The armrests should be down low so that they enable you to get in close to your workstation and you can work in an upright position. No chair can provide a perfect position for long periods, so you need to get up from the chair and walk around. One comment on that video is that I would recommend generally a back support that is up supporting the shoulder blades, because a lot of people do get fatigue in their upper back, and if you are suffering from fatigue in your upper back, please do make sure that your back support goes all the way up. Do you need a footrest? Resting firmly on the ground with a hip angle of 100 degrees. So if your feet are firmly on the ground, then most likely you don't need a footrest. However, if you have a high desk and you need to raise your chair in order for your elbows to be the correct height above your desk at an angle of 90 to 100 degrees, enabling you to maintain a neutral wrist position, if that's the situation, then you will need a footrest in order for you to be able to get your feet comfortably on the floor. Ideal situation, a adjustable desks of different heights, considering the height of the desk and making sure that the chair is adjusted to suit the desk, and then bringing in a footrest as needed. When you do introduce a footrest, you still need to consider all the aspects of the chair setup prior, the amount of gap between your legs and the seat pan, and also that everything is more or less in 90 degrees. So just because you have a footrest, that nothing changes there. Monitor position. Okay, this is another problem that a lot of people have. Is the top of your screen at or slightly below your eye level? Is the screen approximately at arm's length away from you whilst seated? it's important to make sure that your monitor position is, so your fingers should be just shy of the screen and your monitor should be directly in front of you. So you're looking at your horizontal gaze and your eyes should come up to the monitor. So you can see there that it's too low. It causes you to have a neck flexion while you're working. So you may need a monitor raiser if you can't raise it high enough. And if you have two monitors, make sure that you're face on to the main monitor and that the secondary monitor is right beside it at the same height, and they should be this equal distance from your workstation, so that your arm, when you reach out your arms, that they both screens touch with your finger. The last point there was that if you are using both screens equally, you should position them such that they are equidistant, and that prevents a lot of rotation of the neck. So, once again, they are again at arm's length from you. Okay, the positioning of equipment. You need to make sure that your mouse and other frequently used equipment is positioned within elbow's length away from your circle of strength, which is your body, and that your hands and wrists are maintained in a neutral position, and that your shoulders are relaxed by your side with your elbows tucked in. So once again, I will get a diagram here. Like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here you can see the stuff's put all over the desk, not near where he's working. Look how his elbows are out there. So now he's moving it all in closer so that he can reach everything without reaching. Yeah. You're going to end up with pain and strain if you're reaching out to get to your mouse. So keep it in by your side and notice that the elbows are in by your side. If you're using your phone a lot, it's a good idea to have a headphone set so that you're not overreaching and you're not putting your neck in awkward postures. Make sure your keyboard and mouse are directly in front of you and that the mouse is right beside the keyboard in order to keep your elbows tucked in. If you are typing or reading from papers, in order to reduce your neck flexion and rotation, which could cause neck pain, you need to get a monitor, a document holder that you can place in front of your monitor so that you can maintain your head in neutral. Right, so make sure that everything's close to you, the equipment's positioned, your posture at your workstation. Remember, performing postural adjustments and stretching on a regular basis will increase flexibility and has the potential to decrease the risk of injury. I think this is our last video. And it's just a short one, and you'll be able to see just by the demonstration. Right, we all know this posture. That's not a good thing. So you need to keep your shoulders back. So what she's showing there is trying to keep your shoulders back so that you're not going to compromise your shoulder joints. Now, when you breathe in and squeeze your shoulder blades back together and breathe out and then relax, if you were to do that a couple of times during each 30-minute interval that you're at work, it's going to assist in getting you used to having your shoulders back. Shrugging up and lets you know if you're holding tension in your shoulders. So when you shrug up, you will notice them, and then when you let go, you'll notice a definite release in in tension, and if you have been maintaining that tension in your neck, you'll notice that, oh, my neck feels different to how it was previously. So just by doing those exercises, they're good postural exercises that can enable you to be aware of slouching and scrunching of your shoulders as you're working. So remember to apply the principles to manual handling and lifting. Okay, I lied, we have one more video. Right. So manual handling is really important in office work because you need to consider how you approach the tasks, especially when they're down below your waist height. Make sure you remember to use your circle of strength and keep your body square onto the object. Look at your stance, keep the object close to your body and readjust as you need. Bend through your knees, keep your back straight. Reloading a photocopier, by doing activities in the way as demonstrated, you're maintaining the activity within your circle of strength. So those demonstrations showed how you can keep your circle of strength as you do activities within the office, okay? So as a summary, we need to remember that you need to have a strong body, a good stance, and be able to step when you're making movements within the office so that you don't injure yourself. Your circle of strength implies that you've got to have your elbows in by your side and keep the weight close to your body and consider eyes, nose over toes. When you've got aches and pains, you need to warm up before you do an activity. You need to recognize if you're feeling aches and pains, you need to respond to those aches and pains, and then you need to actually do something to reverse the aches and pains that you are experiencing so that they don't become worse and you end up with an injury. Stretching, movement, standing up, sitting less and moving more are all going to help to make your office life much more comfortable, less likely to get an injury, and overall more satisfying. You need to apply office ergonomic principles when you set up your workspace, thinking about your chair, your desk, your monitor, and the equipment that you have on your table, and make sure that you have the best possible setup for your unique situation, and that you are intermittently during the day setting reminders to make sure that you're maintaining that good posture and good setup and taking regular breaks. You need to consider the manual handling in the workplace. We saw some examples in the video of manual handling, and we saw how the weight was maintained close, they were using their proper stance and good ergonomics. You need to consider your own posture at work. We have identified some simple good habits for you and some strategies for you to put into place, and hopefully you will find that you'll be experiencing less repetition, less stress, and start to get some good office habits. If you practice consistently, these habits will benefit you now and for the rest of your life. So please consider making a few adjustments to the way you do things. Like we said before, your body is perfectly designed to be active, and you owe it to yourself not to take shortcuts and put yourself at risk. Treat your body with respect, and your ability to work and your quality of life will definitely be maintained. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I will just repeat that again because I didn't realise I'd muted myself. Thank you, Lynn. So if anyone has any questions, if you can please submit them now in the question pane. So one question that has come through, Lynn, I'm really motivated to do this, but how do I inspire others?
Inspiring others is always tough, but you know, some of the things that I've seen recently that seem to work well is if you kind of make it like a little mini break time. Depending on what kind of department you work in, a lot of departments allow like 5 minutes an hour for postural change. So, you know, you can be the one getting up and saying to everyone, hey, do you want to just all stand up for 5 minutes, 5 minutes and do a stretch? Trying to get some sort of system like that into place. The other thing is sometimes just by you getting up and moving and doing a stretch and taking a quick little walk up and down, that starts to inspire others. Another way to inspire people is to actually move things like the printer, the garbage cans, and items that people use a little away from the office space, so they actually have to get up and walk. There are some organisations that I'm aware of that have removed garbage bins, so you actually, if you have any trash, you have to actually get up and move and put it away, and the same with the printers. The other thing is, you know, maybe getting someone to come in and talk to them if that hasn't happened previously, because sometimes just seeing it from somebody else and a different perspective opens up their eyes and makes them aware of how important it is. You know, it has been quoted that sitting is the new smokings, and you know, we are becoming so inactive in our lifestyles, and it is going to have a lot of detrimental effects in the future. So I think, you know, if people really realise that, they will start to do more. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Lynn. Another question that's come through, what is the best type of chair to use in an office?
The million-dollar question. You know what? It really does depend. All of us are built differently. Everybody has different leg lengths, you know, different sizes. So, you know, what suits a 5'2" person is never going to fit a 6'4" person. We also have different aches and pains, and we have different habits. So, you know, there is no one chair. The best thing I recommend is for people to go to a furniture store where they actually sell a whole variety of ergonomic chairs and sit in a whole bunch of them and see what suits them. Okay, because when your hips and your knees, you know, how high hips are, where your arch support is, and how long your back is. You know, whether, like in the video, they showed that lady in the chair with some of her shoulder blades. That would drive me crazy. Can you hear that? What's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, I had my little thing tipped down. So yeah, it's really dependent on the individual. So there's a wide variety of chairs, and there's a reason they make them. You know, personally, I'm not into some chairs because I really like good support, but different strokes for different folks. Hope that answered your question.
Another question, Lynn. What is the best type of, are back rests or supports beneficial?
Are backrests or supports beneficial? I'm going to say yes. Okay, so there's been some theories about sitting on like items like Swiss balls and maneuverable chairs and things like that, but it's been clearly demonstrated that if you have a backrest, you're able to relax and that your back muscles and be supported, and it's
And therefore, if you do have a back condition, you're going to be decreasing the pain that you're experiencing. So
less muscle
that's what I'm basing my answer on. If you're someone
experiencing. So my answer on, if you're someone that stands up a lot and moves around frequently, then you don't want a backrest, that's fine. But if you do have a back injury, I would highly recommend a backrest. And I also believe that the backrest coming all the way up to the back of the shoulders is optimal because it's supporting the whole back. You must have the lumbar support in the right place. And one thing we didn't really touch on in the seminar, but activating your core. So using your tummy muscles to push back against the seat to create that stable core that you're actually sitting with a back that is stable. Hope that answered your question.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. No other questions have come through, and we've come to the end of this morning's webinar. So thank you again to Lynn from IPA Rehabilitation for this morning's webinar, Strong4Life Office Ergonomics. Thank you as well for everyone who joined us this morning and for sticking with us during those technical issues as well. Again, once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation. We do appreciate you completing that survey and providing us with your feedback. And on behalf of WorkSafe Tasmania and our presenter, Lynn from IPA Rehabilitation, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.